EVs like Tesla's are fast, sleek, jewelry-like cars that capture the imagination. But quietly, amid all of the BEV hype, automakers' hybrid fleet took broad strides forward. Car buyers don't like the challenges of EV ownership anymore. Sales of hybrid cars led by Toyota Motor and Honda Motor ramped up to outpace those of the flashier electric vehicles. So, why are hybrids killing EVs in the United States? Let's see. Ford announced last month that it was cutting production of its F-150 Lightning electric pickup truck. Last year, General Motors and Volkswagen said they would reduce electric vehicle manufacturing. All-electric and plug-in hybrid car makers are struggling too, with layoffs or slowing assembly lines at companies like BYD, Lucid, Polestar, and Fisker. Tesla, the world's most valuable car company, lost $80 billion in value in January, 12% of its market capitalization, after CEO Elon Musk projected lower sales this year. Meanwhile, EV users face some harsh realities of living on electrons. Last month, car rental company Hertz said it was selling off 20,000 electric cars, one-third of its electric fleet, and replacing them with gasoline-powered vehicles, blaming low demand and high operating costs. Hertz said the sale resulted in $245 million in net depreciation expenses in the fourth quarter of last year. Drivers around the United States have also encountered unexpected problems. Some EV owners have experienced software glitches, and manufacturers have had to delay deliveries to squash bugs. Public EV charging stations continue to suffer from reliability problems, which extreme weather has made impossible to ignore. A sudden Arctic cold blast across the country in January left EV drivers waiting hours at charging stations as the frigid temperatures reduced battery capacities and caused chargers to malfunction. However, the numbers show that electrification is nonetheless charging ahead. Americans bought almost 1.2 million EVs last year, below some forecasts but still a record high. They now make up 7.6% of the US vehicle market. The humble hybrid is having a moment. While 2023 was shaped to be the biggest year for EV sales America has ever seen, it's also been marred by staggering production challenges and uneven consumer demand. But why do Americans prefer EVs? First off, the country's vast geography and widespread car culture make long-range travel an everyday necessity. Many Americans are concerned about the limited range of EVs compared to traditional gas-powered cars, as charging infrastructure needs to be more extensive, especially in rural areas. Also, hybrids do not require the same lifestyle changes as EVs, such as installing home charging stations or planning trips around charging availability. Furthermore, lower gas prices in the USA compared to other parts of the world have historically made gasoline-powered cars more cost-effective, reducing the financial stimulus for consumers to switch to EVs. Overcoming the barriers and increasing adoption requires further investment in charging infrastructure, better public education on the benefits of electric vehicles, and more competitive pricing in the market. As a result, some car makers are dialing back their electric sales goals, battery plant plans, and even the tough love they once had for car dealers reluctant to go all in on EVs. Meanwhile, according to the US Energy Information Administration, hybrid sales are growing at a rate that slightly outpaces EV growth. Hybrids now make up nearly 10% of new car sales, a proportion that's more than doubled since 2020. Unlike EVs, hybrids burn gasoline and create tailpipe emissions, but they generally make far less tailpipe pollution than their purely gas counterparts. For example, the latest Toyota Sienna minivan comes only in hybrid form and has nearly half the CO2 emission of its non-hybrid predecessor. Every car maker would be eager to offer more hybrids to customers looking to lower their carbon footprints, but who feel they need to help make the full leap to EVs. This is what you call the hybrid dilemma. Faced with enormous costs pivoting their business to produce EVs, solid sales for gas cars, and shareholders who demand profitability, the auto industry can't decide whether hybrids are a bridge to an all-electric future or a dead end. Americans may still want hybrids, while car makers have already moved beyond them. Another significant factor contributing to the popularity of hybrids is their cost, lower than EVs. Recently, Ford said it would increase its hybrid F-150 pickup truck production because of waning demand for its all-electric model. EV advocates insist the demand is still there, but consumers are only temporarily shying away because of high interest rates that make EVs, typically more expensive than your average car, more challenging to purchase. Hybrids typically cost less than EVs, making them more accessible to a broader population. The upfront cost of an EV can prevent many consumers, especially those on a budget or with other financial obligations. Additionally, the cost of EV batteries can be significant, and they need to be replaced over the vehicle's lifetime, further increasing the overall cost of ownership. General Motors, Ford, and Tesla have all warned of an electric vehicle slowdown because they say demand might drop. Automakers mainly say higher borrowing costs are the issue, but some car dealers say EVs are sitting longer than regular cars. They say consumers are concerned about the range of EVs and lack of infrastructure. In a Cox Automotive survey, 53% of consumers said EVs will eventually replace internal combustion engines, but less than a third of dealers agreed. Several dealerships interviewed by CNBC said EVs were taking longer to sell, and there was a supply and demand imbalance with the vehicles. The lack of adequate EV charging infrastructure in the United States is another major barrier to the widespread adoption of EVs. While charging stations are becoming more common, they're still not as prevalent as gasoline stations. This can be a significant inconvenience for EV owners who may have to spend time planning their trips around charging availability. In contrast, hybrids do not require specialized charging infrastructure and can refuel at any gasoline station, making them a more convenient option for many consumers. Now, car makers are in overdue to respond as analysts take a red pen to their BEV forecasts. The revision in consumer preferences and the expense of making and selling battery electric vehicles has forced General Motors and Ford Motor into an abrupt shift. Both legacy automakers are interrupting their highly publicized and expensive transitions to battery EVs to re-emphasize hybrid cars. Car makers have varying levels of commitment to an all-electric future, yet there's somehow even less industry consensus about hybrid cars. Some hybrids work like the original Toyota Prius from 20 years ago, combining a traditional gas engine with an electric motor. Others, like Trayman's Chrysler Pacifica, can plug into charge just like an EV, further limiting their gas usage. Take Ford, which recently dialed back its EV production goals and is focusing more on hybrids. Ford is doubling the production of its hybrid model F-150, for example, which is proving to be more popular than its fully electric sibling. Then there's Stellantis, the parent company of brands including Jeep and Ram, which builds America's best-selling plug-in hybrid car while offering some EVs. The hybrid champion is still Toyota. It recently announced that the ubiquitous Camry sedan would soon be offered only as a hybrid as the company moves to hybridize its entire lineup of cars. But GM CEO Mary Barra has said the plan is to skip a half step and bypass hybrids entirely to go straight to EVs. Volkswagen has been similarly reticent on the hybrid front and is still debating whether to sell them again in America. After discontinuing one hybrid recently, Subaru is set to offer just one other option, the upcoming Forester hybrid, which won't even be on sale until 2025. Mazda's sole hybrid option is a large SUV that starts at nearly $50,000, almost double the price of the cheapest new Toyota Prius. Even Honda, another pioneer in the hybrid space, is down to 2 hybrid models, though a third is coming soon. Consumers who just want to save money on gas are caught in the middle, but perhaps have fears about going fully electric or can't stomach the cost of EVs. A customer would only want to lease rather than buy an EV right now, given how quickly everything from their range to what charging port they use is changing. No one wants to be caught with old technology. Part of the challenge here is that Americans have a bad habit of choosing a car that might last a decade plus based on costs at the pump that definitely won't last that long. For automakers, getting their car lineups to match up with rapidly changing consumer trends, gas prices, and their competition can be a nearly impossible task. Adding to the complexity is the fact that the stock market looks at legacy automakers as poor investments. After all, the electric car revolution goes hand in hand with the tech-focused transformation of the car industry. Automakers are eyeing revenue from software features, downloads, new apps, and eventually self-driving vehicles. It is hard to square any of that with investment into something as antiquated as the internal combustion engine. Investors see the sky-high returns from Tesla, which produces only electric cars, and want other car companies to follow suit. For now, more kinds of hybrids are coming soon to meet the new demand. That includes a broader lineup of hybrid Toyota SUVs, as well as more novel cars like the 2025 Ram Ramcharger, a hybrid with a V6 engine that's more like a full EV than any other gas-burning truck available right now. Perhaps more automakers will hop on the hybrid bandwagon until most, if not nearly all, gas-burning vehicles have some form of electric power. That would help cut emissions until EV charging networks are up to par, or the rapidly falling cost of battery packs could soon make EVs comparable price-wise to, or cheaper than, gas cars. By that point, it wouldn't make much sense for automakers to continue investing in hybrids. Those are the most optimistic scenarios. The current status quo, a mix of different vehicle types for different needs, could persist and push us into a world in which hybrids don't do enough to mitigate our carbon problem. If car companies give up on hybrids before EVs become affordable and easier to charge, many consumers could simply opt for more gas vehicles, which isn't great for the climate. Or, if automakers lean on hybrids for too long, they run the risk of delaying the EV transition entirely, which also isn't great for the climate. The electric transition may be inevitable, but it's going to be messier, weirder, and more protracted than many would like to admit. Growing consumer caution is forcing the Biden administration to rethink some of its big ambitions for a green transition. The Environmental Protection Agency is considering relaxing regulations that would have required automakers to rapidly scale up production of electric vehicles. The news came after thousands of auto dealers wrote to the administration complaining that EVs were piling up on their lots. Still, electric cars need to be on pace for what is clearly their ultimate goal: mitigating climate change. Global greenhouse gas emissions reached a record high for last year. Transportation is their most significant source in the US, accounting for 29% of overall emissions. Light-duty vehicles, sedans, crossovers, SUVs, pickup trucks make up to 17% of total emissions. The US has committed to reducing carbon pollution by about 38% below current levels by 2030. 9 states now have deadlines for banning sales of new fossil fuel-powered cars. Last year, the Environmental Protection Agency proposed rules that would effectively require 2/3 of cars sold in the US to produce zero emissions. Electrifying cars is an important step, but many drivers have real and perceived concerns about giving up on gasoline entirely. Price, performance, range anxiety, reliability, and charging infrastructure. So, it's no surprise that hybrid cars, models that blend electric and gasoline power, are more popular than ever, even as some manufacturers have begun removing them from their lineups. According to the Energy Information Administration, the number of hybrid model offerings declined in 2023, but sales increased significantly across existing models. Americans are buying around as many hybrid cars as fully electric vehicles, and demand is growing. But what do you think? What's the future of EV in the United States? Let me know in the comment section, and make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss the exciting content I send your way.
Shutterstock